Hey, how's everybody doing? We are going to continue to keep the ball rolling on our book of the month and our book read. We are within the will portion of the book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. If you guys have been reading along, I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't, and this is the first time you've seen myself, just a quick context on me. So, my name's Nick Kleitch, and my YouTube channel is all about reading. It's about podcasting. It's about kind of vlogging and blogging. My whole premise is wanting to just improve myself, learn new material, and just kind of absorb and really capture life experiences. So it's been a really fun journey to tackle this book as my first book, but really looking for people that just love to read. This is a good place to start and a great book to do so. So if you're seeing this particular video, I'd encourage you to go to my channel, and this video will be a string of videos within a greater playlist where you can go out and buy the book or simply start off the beginning of the playlist till now to get caught up on basically what this book entails, how I leverage it, all of that good stuff. So that's just a little bit of context as you're being introduced to myself. Also, if you would like to subscribe, that'll give you obviously some good kind of indication on what book will be next, and as the catalog builds, be able to just introduce you to some different content through the podcast and the book reads and the blog as well too. So without further ado, we are going to conquer, I believe, the seventh strategy within the will portion of the book, called Something Bigger Than Yourself. So in prior chapters within the will section specifically, we've talked about kind of pillar concepts that one can lean on and hone in as we're facing obstacles. Principles like love everything that happens to you, and perseverance, and building your inner citadel. All of these things I think are very critical elements to facing obstacles. In the prior sections, it was more strategic and more kind of practices and tactics that you can use. This is really more so things that are kind of individually based. I'm sure that's why he left it for the end, Ryan Holiday. So we will begin this section in the Korean War, of all places. So United States Navy fighter pilot named James Stockdale was shot down in North Vietnam in 1965. As he drifted back towards the earth after ejecting from his plane, he spent those few minutes contemplating what awaited him below. So already we're kind of set with a premise that's pretty intense, right? We're not only in a fighter plane fighting in a war, but we've been shot down and we're literally descending to the earth, knowing that he will become a prisoner of war at that point. And so, aware that he would be the highest ranking Navy commander the North Vietnamese had ever captured, he knew he couldn't do anything about his fate, but as the commanding officer, he could provide leadership and support and direction to his fellow prisoners. He could change that situation and not let history repeat itself. So in essence, what we're talking about here is he made a decision in the face of some pretty severe adversity to say, hey, I'm kind of accepting my fate, as we learned earlier, the art of acceptance, but how can I really kind of hone in on doing this for purposes that are outside of myself for the grander whole? And that's what he did. So Stockdale didn't take his obligation as a commander lightly. He went so far as to attempt suicide at one point, not to end his suffering, but to send a message to the guards, or rather. Other soldiers in the war effort had given their lives. He would not disgrace them or their sacrifice by allowing himself to be used as a tool against the common cause. He would rather hurt himself than contribute, even against his will, to hurting and undermining others to prove himself formidable for whatever physical harm his captors threatened him with. So essentially what he was doing is saying, hey, I'm willing to do this for the greater good, to show everyone that if I can do it, you can do it, to try to boost morale, which is pretty crazy and intense. But I think it sends a powerful message as a prisoner of war. But he was human. The first thing he did was throw out any idealistic notion about what happens to soldiers when asked to give up information under hours of torture. So he set up a network of support inside the camp specifically to help soldiers who felt ashamed for having broke under pressure. We are in this together, unity over self. So that was an example of, again, his leadership of understanding there is a grander good here. He developed a network to try to help people just stay in the fight and survive when they were being tortured, which is pretty intense. And then goes on to say, these two men were not zealous for the cause, meaning they were not trying to put their ego ahead of themselves and say, oh, because we're part of the United States, we have no fear. But they certainly had their own doubts about the war in Vietnam, but their cause was in their men. They cared about their fellow prisoners and grew great strength by putting their well-being ahead of their own, meaning that they understood that they were in a very intense situation, and they decided that they need to be there to lead for their men's purpose and not their own, which is extremely powerful. Then the author within this strategy goes on to kind of turn it towards us a little bit as younger folks. So you're young, you didn't cause this, it's not your fault, meaning the situation kind of that we're in right now in life and in business and the market and time and all that. This only makes it easier to lose our sense of self, to say nothing of our sense of others. But no, ignore that. It is in these moments we must show true strength of will within us. And then there's a quote here. People are getting a little desperate. People might not show their best elements to you. You must never lower yourself to be a person you do not like. There is no better time than now in today's world, he's saying, to have a moral and civil backbone, to have a moral and civic true north. This is a tremendous opportunity for you, a young person, to be heroic. So before we get into kind of the back half here, what that is simply saying is that though we're not directly involved in a war right now, like a Vietnam or World War I or World War II, there's great relevance in leveraging this greater good purpose kind of strategy to say, okay, I might be in the midst of an obstacle right now that I'm fighting, but what's most important is I'm doing this for the grander good of some cause. And in doing so, you kind of lift the pressure off yourself and give yourself a little bit of energy and vitality. So that's kind of where we're headed to kind of work through that. So when we focus on others, on helping them, or simply providing a good example, our own personal fears and troubles will diminish. A shared purpose gives us strength. When it comes to obstacles and whatever reactions they provoke, boredom, hatred, frustration, confusion, just because you feel a way doesn't mean everyone else has to. So sometimes when we're personally stuck in some impossible problem, one of the best ways to create an opportunity or new avenues for movement is to think, if I can't solve this for myself, how can I at least make this better for other people? Take it for granted for a second that there is nothing else in it for us, nothing we can do for ourselves. How can we use this situation to benefit others? What doesn't help anyone is making this all about you all the time. Why does this happen to me? What am I going to do about it? Because now we have something to do. Like Stockdale, we now have a mission, and that is kind of turning and transitioning over to the point of, okay, once we acknowledge that shit happens and it's unfair, we then can come back and say, okay, so this is how I'm going to deploy the strategy, and know that you're making it better for others, which is extremely powerful. So stop making it harder on yourself by thinking about essentially I being dangerous. I am so smart. I had that. I deserve better. You're inflating your own role and importance. Start thinking unity over self. We're in this together. Even if we can't carry the load all the way, we're going to take care of our crack at picking up the heavy end. We're going to be in the service of others. Help ourselves by helping them. Whatever you're going through, whatever is holding you down or standing in your way, can be turned into a source of strength, thinking of people other than yourself. Pride can be broken, toughness has its limits, but desire to help, no harshness, no deprivation, no toil should interfere with the empathy of others. Compassion is always an option, camaraderie as well. That is the power of will that will never be taken away and only relinquished. So really it's kind of a motivational bit here on that piece specifically. But what it's really saying is that we can truly generate a lot of really good internal and visible energy for ourselves in thinking of your team, your family, your business, whatever the case is. So whatever trouble you're having, no matter how difficult It is not some unique misfortune picked out especially for you. It just is what it is. He's kind of calling us out a little bit here. This kind of mytopia is what convinces us to our own detriment that we're the center of the universe, when really there is a world beyond our own personal experience filled with people who have dealt with worse. And I love that because, he's acknowledging that everything, like not everything, sorry, catching my breath here a little bit. Everyone living life will have problems to a certain degree. And so we need to understand that everyone has ups, downs, lefts, and rights. And yet we can lead not only in the sense of general personal leadership, but also being able to hone in something bigger than ourselves to be the one person that steps away from the chain and say, hey, I know that we're all in a shitty situation, or my situation may be better or worse than you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to step up and I'm going to lead through that by understanding this concept. So just to kind of round things out on a high note, we are all, at varying points in our lives, the subject of random and often incomprehensible events. Embrace this power, the sense of being a part of a larger whole. It's an exhilarating thought. We're all just humans doing the best we can. We're all just trying to survive and in the process inch the world forward a bit. Help your fellow humans thrive and survive. Contribute your little bit to the universe before it swallows you up, and be happy with that. Lend a hand to others. Be strong for them, and it will make you stronger. So on a personal note from me, to kind of round this out, what I think the last kind of takeaway is here is, once we're kind of in the trench and dealing with these obstacles and thinking about these kind of pillars, if you will, the grandest kind of form of being able to serve a higher purpose is the human experience on the earth. So being able at the very least to say, okay, I'm here right now. I may not love it. I want to make it better for another person. But yet, if everyone did that and took a step back, the whole goal is to move the human race forward and progress in a positive manner. So at the very least, that can be something that you lean on and that you love. But it's something that gives me great personal kind of motivation and courage to do the right thing, because the little things do matter at the grand scheme of things and at the end of the day. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this strategy. Let's continue to read. We're near the end of this book, so I'm so appreciative that you've kind of stuck with me the whole time. But let's finish this thing on a high note. Thanks, guys and gals.